discussing The See That Things by Gert de Graaff. But before we move on to the discussion, we have a small surprise. We actually sat down with the director, Gert de Graaff, for an interview in collaboration with NID Film Club. And if you're listening to this podcast or over audio, I would highly recommend you to switch over to YouTube so that you can see the video in its entirety. And at the end of the video, we'll proceed with the discussion as usual. So, without further ado, here's Baiju Kurup interviewing the director Gert de Graaff for The See That Things.
I have a question to start with. Could you please tell us something about the origin of this film? See that thing
About
about the origin of the film, where
the origin,
idea
yes.
came and how we started with.
Yeah. Well, I came across an audio tape of a Dutch guy, Walter Keers, and he was a student of Nishikadatta Ramahai, the Indian teacher. And he talked in Dutch a long tape, and it really struck me like lightning. What he explained, and I thought, oh, everybody should know about this, So I started bothering my friends, trying to convince them of what he spoke about, and they were all like, "What are you talking about?" And then I discovered that it's difficult to talk about it, and I rather have people experience it. So then I thought, can't I make a movie out of it? Because I only want to make movies when it's obvious that only a movie can tell it, not a book, not a theater play, not anything, but just a movie. And Walter Keers, the guy, spoke about perception, which I like very much, of course, as a filmmaker. And he spoke about viewpoints, standpoints, from where you look. And then I thought, that's a great idea, because a lot of illusions in the film, as you saw, only work from one perspective, from exactly this standpoint. And if you move around just a couple of centimeters sometimes, you immediately see through the illusion. So I thought, okay, if I can use all these optical illusions to get the audience for the idea that it depends on where you are, what you actually think, I can maybe also get them into the idea that what you see is not exactly what is there, and then maybe what you think is not exactly what is there. So I wanted to make them a sort of mental step aside. And then I found a lot of I think interesting ideas to deal with this problem of mental shift. Like, well, we all have the experience. I don't know if you dream, if you remember your dreams. I do very vividly, and when I dream, it's totally true. What I dream. I'm not thinking, oh, I'm just dreaming. It's happening. I believe it completely, and then I wake up, which is a mental shift, a mental change of standpoint, and I discover, oh, it's not true at all. It was just a dream. So a lot of these step asides are in the movie. All the time. It's about what you think you see is not what's actually there. Yeah. Well, I can talk for 2 hours, of course, but this is what I do in the film for 2 hours. But that's the main point. Yeah, the shift of perspective, and I experienced myself still after I made the film. I made the film in 2000, and it's a long time ago. I made some notes to remember what I wanted to say to you during this recording. And then I noticed this morning, okay, I'm again in the trap of an I, a person, me, who wants to explain, who wants to be clear, he wants to be, well, maybe even famous, or he wants to be listened to, like what you're doing right now. So that's all it's all a sort of cramp, you know. I got nervous. Am I going to say the right things? You know, am I going to be uh, open and spontaneous? And but you can't be spontaneous if you think about it, what you want to say. You see, so I noticed that this morning I came into a sort of cramp, like I wanted something, and that's what the movie actually is about. You know, about this prison, you might say, where everybody is kept in, like we think we are a person, we think we are an I, you know, an ego, and we have all the fears and desires of this standpoint. You see, and I hope that people, in the end, when they see the movie, get this idea that okay, you might move away from from this standpoint, from this I, and look a little bit different, and see that maybe it's just an idea in your head, and um, and that's it. You know, it's just an idea. And if we say, sometimes people ask me, "What's your film about?" I say it's about how to become happy, and they say, "Ah, and is the answer in the film?" I say, "Yes, the answer is in the film," because the sentence "I want to be happy" is ridicule because the word "I" is in it. You know, I want to be happy, but the I, if the I is an idea, how can an idea become happy? You know, it's not possible. You see, you see my point. That's the ultimate point. If people can make the shift from the I to something else, I explain in the film what this something else might be. Uh, the screen where the shots are projected on, you know, in the cinema or the television set, or you know, a lot of different examples I use to make clear that we are actually awareness where all these pictures arise in, you know, where all these ideas arise in. We are a possibility where in it can be, we are like this laptop, you know. This laptop makes it possible for us to appear. Yeah. This is clear a little bit.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, we are actually the people living in this part, especially in academic terms, the Orientalists. We are very familiar with the idea of I, right?
Yeah.
We have different philosophies dealing with that,
Yeah.
and most of the Hindu philosophy, Vedas, Puranas, and all of them deeply search for the meaning of the I. What is it all?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. I read a lot about it in the
yeah,
stuff.
that's why I mean, while watching the film, I mean, till you explained to me about the origin of the consent, I was not very sure about it. So all through the film, I was finding that it is something so familiar to me. No, I
Great.
mean, either in terms of the crisis of the writer, or in terms of the search of I, and the illusion everybody is carrying in the head about oneself and who we are, what we are, and all that. I mean, these are
Yeah.
the questions human being been asking ever since the beginning of the first civilization,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at the same time, the film has a very unique beginning. Yeah, see that thing. The film start with a tree, then move to a sequence where the viewer slightly wonder what exactly happening. Subsequently, comes back to Rick, just to substantiate it is again another dream or an illusion, right? I mean, we see constant mixing up of real,
Yeah.
dream,
Yeah.
and also, I mean, there is constantly creating a kind of illusion,
Yeah.
because the illusion the film create is something so close to the illusion the painters mostly creates. I
Yeah.
mean,
That's true. And there's
in the
more to it.
cinematic,
Yeah. Sorry.
yeah, in the cinematic language, actually, this is a little different, right? The way you edited the sequences and the things you juxtaposed and all that kind of thing. I mean, you even use the objects, when very effectively cut the object with the character, then create a different mapping and effective use of montage techniques, a kind
Yeah.
of revisit,
Yeah.
revisit or montage technique with a different philosophy altogether.
Yeah.
With
Yeah. That's true.
entirely different philosophy. Do you
If you,
please,
if you,
please? Please talk something about the unique beginning
Yeah,
of
yeah.
See That Thing.
Well, I like this play with the audience, in what we believe in. And if you take, for instance, the opening scene, as you said, with Rick, Rick is a famous Dutch singer at that time. So everybody assumed that when the film opens with him, he will definitely come back. He will play a role in the film. But he doesn't. He's only there for 5 minutes, and that's it. So this was a sort of playing with the audience, and of course he has this first dream with the water, and then he wakes up, and then we get the title, Granada, and a date and a time, and you think, this is reality. This is where the film starts. And then everybody knows that he is not really asleep, of course. He's pretending to be asleep. But we have this so called suspension of disbelief in film. We set aside our disbelief, we want to believe it. And then he wakes up a second time, when he shrinks, of course, becoming a small man, when he picks up the telephone, and you think, oh, this is weird. It is probably not real either. And then he wakes up, and then we see the title of the film, to See That Things, and then somebody zaps away, with a remote control. And then we think, I hope the audience thinks, what are we looking at? Now we are looking at something else, like Winnie the Pooh or the 8 o'clock news. And what is this film? Where's to see that things? And this play with the audience, it's on different levels. Yeah, this is of course bringing in a title with a date and a place is a saying. This is true. This is where we are right now. And it's not, it's in the dream. And I play all the time with all this sort of, I took it with me when I made the poster. This is the poster of the film. And a lot of people ask me, where can I get the poster? This one. I said that this is the poster. There is this one doesn't is nowhere. It's here. This is the film. And this is actually the same sort of play with and then they laugh. They think, you tricked me. I believed something else, and it's of course all about this believing. It makes me, by the way, quite happy that you know all this. But that's, of course, quite extraordinary in India. Maybe you're even brought up with it. But let's say in America or in Germany or wherever the film was shown, everybody was, of course, not familiar with all these ideas. And it was sometimes quite a shock, to think about this for the first time in your life, that maybe your whole personality is just an idea. You put so much effort in it, and it's just an idea. Yeah. Yeah, there are so many things. For instance, what is real, as you said, what struck me, for me, it's a fiction film. It's with an actor, and it's with a set, and some things are constructed, and sometimes it's not. Like the street interviews, people are asked, "What are you?" And they say what they think they are. Um, then you see, okay, maybe this is real, but a lot of things are staged. But then, as you know, I won the first prize, the main prize of the ITVA, the International Documentary Film Festival in Amsterdam, which was a great surprise for me because it's not a documentary. Maybe the subject is a documentary, but the film is fiction. And I won another prize somewhere else in America for best fiction. So I thought, okay, this is also about what people believe in. If you believe in a documentary, you think it's all true. And in a fiction film, you want to believe it's not true, but you want to believe. So this is the same sort of play in a bigger scale, with the film itself, with the reception of the film. What is it actually? Yeah. So it was fun too.
Vivek, do you have anything to ask?
Yeah, I just had a quick question regarding the street interviews. They specifically ask, "What are you?" Not
Yeah.
"Who are you?"
Yeah. What are you? And
Yeah,
because if you ask, yeah, well, who are you? Then people give their name. And if you ask them, what
right,
are you? Then they give their profession, I'm a
right, right,
filmmaker,
right.
etc. but that's what I think I am, and of course nobody gives the right answer, and they all get confused. Like, I can't really say what I am. I can only say what I think I am. Yeah. But the main play in the street interviews is, of course, that we believe that when you shoot with a camera that's shaking and it's sometimes pointing to the ground and it's sometimes framing the guy or the woman in front, and you think it's all real. You think, this is a street interview, this is reality, completely reality. And then a guy steps in and he says, no, 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 you were supposed to say I'm a Roman Catholic. Right, sorry. And then it happens again, and you start thinking, oh, wait a minute, this is all staged.
Yeah.
But where does it end? Where does the staging end, and where does reality step in?
And also another very significant, at the same time, very prominent. You prominently use, medium is the television. The role of the television is actually very important in the film. You deal with various aspects of television. Television as a medium, television as a device, as a platform where one gets reflected by oneself, and all that. Also, in couple of places, you use uh, television screen as a transition device, technically speaking, right? And why this extensive use of television in the film?
Why? What was the last sentence? Why do I? What did you
Uh,
say? Yeah,
Extensively use television
yeah,
for different purposes in film.
yeah, yeah,
Sometimes uses a device, sometimes uses a medium, sometimes as a platform where one
yeah,
gets reflected on self, right? Yeah.
yeah. Well, uh, it's because, of course, all these, or some of these gurus like Nisargadatta, I think, tells us that actually we are this television screen, or this film screen. You could say it's a cinema screen as well. I use that a lot. There's also this white sheet which got blown in the wind. Um, and it's also in the beginning of the film. If you look carefully, it's already there. It's throughout the film. Um, uh, yeah, as I said, we are this machine where images appear in. And it sounds, of course, crazy if you say this um, some um, suddenly to a person. That's why I use the film to gradually get them into the idea, that the television is a good metaphor. It's just a metaphor. Um, but on the other hand, I use it, of course. As I said, the film is about standpoint and about changing your standpoint. And first we look at the guy who wakes up 3 times, then we look at a television where somebody is zapping around, and then we make 180 degree and we look from the television to the people watching television. And this 180 degree, of course, is very important because I hope that the audience will make a 180 degree also in their mind, and looking at themselves, not looking at the screen, and noticing that the screen makes you identify with characters on the screen, and then notice them that maybe they identify also with a character, namely themselves, and that's where the whole part with the screenwriter, the second half of the film, comes in. But who is writing about, he is making this movie in his head, he is inventing the script, and he thinks, how do I get on? And now I said everything, and then he invents himself. I could describe a person who is describing a person. It's himself. So he invents himself as a character, which is what we do actually when I'm outside the cinema. I invent myself with the name Gert de Graaff, and I believe in it. I identify with it. So this shifting happens again with when we see Bart typing around, um, and then in the end, of course, he knows he has to delete the See That Thing script, which is with him in it, which is of course a metaphor for deleting your whole story you build around yourself, in your head. Like I'm this personality with this and this, happened to me in this past, and this problems. You see, so this is why the television is in there, and there are more reasons for it. The film sometimes I explain in a part that I wanted to have the ability. I'm looking for the ability, but it's very difficult to find, to look at things without any knowledge. Just to observe without knowing, how how much it weighs, what it is, how it's named, whatever. If you see a horse, you immediately see a horse, 4 legs, and you know everything about it. You can't see the horse, you see your knowledge about the horse. Uh, and the television set, the funny thing is that the television is actually observing, it's just observing, it's not framing anything. If I look at my television right now, it's down there, and it's just looking in the room. If I make a shot from the television, it's not a very good frame.
Okay.
It might be something like this. Something like this. I'm half out of the frame or something. Because it's just actually the television is just observing. It's not pinpointing anything. So that's another reason why all the shots from the television. I had really a problem when I made a shot from the television that it was always framed. It was always horizontal. It was always very nice. And what we did actually, sometimes I put on a blind. I was blinded, and I pointed the camera to something, and then I looked, and I was, oh, this is really a bad frame. Let's keep it this way. This is really a bad frame. It's not balanced. It's bad. This is what the television does. Yeah, this was fun too to do.
Yeah. And also another thing which I noticed, and there is a voiceover all through the film after the first sequence, and that is actually the voice birth listened from cassette player, right?
Yeah,
Okay. This is, I mean, we took little time to identify that this is actually the voice birth reason. Maybe he is keeping that as his reference to write the script and
yeah,
all
yeah.
that.
He did an interview with me.
Yeah.
It's my voice, and if you look carefully in the beginning, we once switched from to a different location from out the television, from point of view of television. We are in a shop, and somebody is thinking about buying a television. And on the television, you see in the background, you see all these televisions, about 40 or 50 sets, and there's me with Bart having
Okay.
this interview. But
Okay.
that's what, maybe you see that the third time. It's not really important, but there I give a sort of clue. He did an interview with me, and he taped it, recorded it, and he's using it because he's very, very interested in this theory, this Buddhist theory
Okay.
about awareness. Yeah,
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting because there is another track of voice since the film has less dialogue and all that. It's
yeah,
mostly a visual treat, and there are lots of things happening by effectively using just a position and cutting back and forth. And also, are you again in the film when the film stops halfway through? Uh, then cuts back to editing room.
yeah, yeah. That's also, of course, it's always getting back. You make you get back, and then you think, this is the writer writing the film, this is the editor editing this movie. So in the end, you come to you as a viewer. You're the final step. You are watching all this, and you are doing a lot of things in your head while watching, and that's what the film is about. It's not about these persons. It's about you identifying with them. It's about you uh, concluding a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's about you believing the illusions and seeing that you're wrong. You know, that's the funny part too. And before I forget, yesterday night I noticed that
Sorry,
I
sorry.
noticed that I have a making of the movie. It's on the DVD. It's about an hour,
Okay.
and I I also had a version with English subtitles, and I put it on Vimeo, so your students might have a look if they like.
We
And
are, yeah, sure.
it's all about how I did things. It's the
Yeah.
making of. So I will send you the link
Okay.
after this.
Okay. Okay. Then also that's a particular area you said. I mean, before starting the voice, there is a presence of the filmmaker. Then the filmmaker presence comes little later, in a very crucial point of the narrative, and narrative stops there for a particular time because it's actually the crisis of birth, and he doesn't know how to proceed and what to write, and then there are certain editorial decisions taking place in the edit table, right? I mean, in the edit room at the table, and you have a conversation with the editor or the technician
Yeah,
uh, whom with you are working on the film. So there are two kinds of conversation going on there. One is actually the crisis of birth. Other is actually the crisis of the filmmaker.
yeah,
Filmmaker is also struggling with how to
yeah.
actually go ahead,
How to how
what
to
to
end
pick up.
it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. And I myself had also a crisis, of course, as the ultimate filmmaker, how to end the movie. It took me a long time. It took me years to find out how I could end it. And then I suddenly understood, he has to delete the whole film, to see that things has never been made, you know. And as I say somewhere, it's you shouldn't listen to all these gurus and all these. You shouldn't read all these books. You shouldn't see this film because before you know it, you're an eye, thinking it's smart, thinking it has a good idea. But there is no I with a good idea. There's no improvement in that way. As the all the gurus say, there is no method. There is no way to. Well, I don't know it. I don't mention it in the film, but of course it's about enlightenment, where you are familiar with the term, but a lot of people not. So that's why I don't use it. But of course, it's about how to wake up from this state, and not how to wake up from a dream, but how to wake up from this state, which is called enlightenment. And yeah, I thought, okay, how can I make him enlightened? Well, that's by deleting everything, in a way. But I had a lot of discussions with a Buddhist group here in Holland that they say, well, you can't do anything, so he can't delete it and then it happens. He can't do it. And this was a nice discussion. I said, well, maybe the cat did it. Maybe the cat crossed the keyboard and entered the key. We don't know.
Sometimes while watching the film and also after watching the films, when the film was so much live in my head, uh, there are a couple of processes go through me as a viewer, and the one is the constant interrogation with oneself about the identity. That's
About
on
identity, yeah.
identity. Second is actually the creative blockage, creative crisis, and also the need to communicate with the field of being. And that's also because the makers, they are actually not very clear about it. Okay, they want to communicate. What do they communicate? How do they communicate? That's also a problem because the more we think about ourselves, sometimes I mean we forget about the society and other things. I mean we probe more and more within ourselves,
Yeah.
and probably that will also cause a certain kind of limitation to a maker, and probably it will create some sort of issue. It might also detach the maker from the society. That is one thing. And when I was looking at the film, I always ask this question to myself, I mean as a viewer. So how much I indulge into the narrative. Along with I ask this question, now I got a golden opportunity to ask that to the maker. And is it a very personal feeling?
Is the a
Is
positive film.
it a very personal feeling for
A
you?
personal film. Right. Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Maybe I can even show you. 1 second. 1 second. No, I don't see it right now, but I wanted to show you the books of Nisargadatta, Who Am I and Being. Uh, it's translated in Dutch by this same guy I mentioned in the beginning, Walter Keers. And I made all these how do you call dog ears? You do this, like you want to remember this page, and the whole book is one dog ear, the whole book, every page I did this because I thought this is an interesting page, and then the next day I read it and I thought, no, it's not this page, it's this page that's very interesting, and then uh, I wanted to explain to everyone, and it's the same like Bart does. He wants to explain to his girlfriend. It's so beautiful, this idea. It's so making free because he somewhere gets it, but he can't really pinpoint it. He can't explain it to her, and she goes away. Of course, this is normal life, She has a baby, and he didn't care for her, and she's upset, and he's upset that she doesn't understand what he's doing. And yeah, well, this was my life also. Yeah, this struggling with the whole idea of the movie. That's why I explained 50 minutes ago about this cramp. I feel myself in being an I, wanting to explain to you and the audience, what the film is about, etc. This cramp. I noticed that. The film was shown at a lot of festivals, about 70, and I attended about half of it, 35 festivals, I think. And there's always, of course, a Q&A afterwards. You go to the stage, and sometimes there are 1,000 people, And the first time I was very nervous, of course. And then I found out, right, this nervousness, this is this problem, where the film is about, that I'm nervous and that I want to, etc. And then I found out I don't have to be nervous because I can be totally spontaneous. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have anything to do. I don't have anything to be. I can just be there spontaneous. And then every Q&A was perfect. There was nothing. There was no problem. I was not nervous at all anymore. I was just happy doing a Q&A again, and like now, you interested in the movie and want to ask things, which makes me happy. But it's not that I have to pretend anything, So this was a personal quest too, that I became sort of liberated. I a lot of times I forget it. I'm not enlightened, but I understood completely what this is actually about, This theory, you might say a theory. Yeah. Is this answering your question?
Yeah. I'm quite happy with the answer. And also, the film deals with the personal relationship of Bert, the protagonist, and uh, and it's also shown in the film in a very different way, but it's a very powerful way. I mean, the breaking of the window glass is something. I mean, I never expected. I mean, there is a possibility of showing a conflict between the couple by just showing a breaking of a window glass, where the both characters are not there in the scene at all. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's something wonderful. I mean, it's a wonderful cinematic language, and you used it fantastically, and it has a strong impact on the viewers. And how did you
Right.
come to this kind of? Uh, how did you, you know, how did you reach to develop this kind of devices to show the emotions uh, without the characters are
Yeah.
physically present in the scene?
Well, this was a really tricky one because I didn't know if this was going to work, and but yeah, it was necessary. Being being a viewer and doing this observing things, without attaching, is what I talked about before. Want to see a horse without knowing it's a horse. So people are watching around the room. Of course, they're listening, and they don't know if she's really there, and they don't know a lot of things, and they agree with her, but they also agree with him. I understood a lot of people. also women, they agree with him also, and they agree with her, of course, because the baby and etc. And uh, though the thing was, I thought we could um, dare to do it because I had a very good director for the actors, you know, Ruud Schuitenmaker. Uh, I talk about it in the making of. I give you a lot of examples of what he did, but he was always able to get people real, you know, really real, not acting. So the choral was, of course, edited. I think there are about 160 cuts in it. You know, it's all small pieces of text. We recorded about 6 hours of choraling, and we compressed it to maybe 3 minutes. And that was due to his capabilities of being a very good director, you know, and getting them in a sort of real fight, you know. I saw people walking away during the movie, during this scene, and I asked them later, "Why did you go away?" And they said it was so confronting. You know, I know these fights, and I didn't want to hear about it. So it was for them completely real. It was not a movie anymore. You know, it was about them, which I hoped it would turn out to be. And yeah, that's it. I think. Yeah, I needed some sort of break, you know. I needed some sort of something has to happen inside him in order to get to this next stage, you know. He can't find it on his own with his books and his post-its and his, you know, all his ideas. Uh, I mean, he is like, he writes down, forget everything, you know, and he thinks, I have to remember that, you know, that you have to forget everything, which is, of course, a paradox, you know. So he gets sort of stuck up in all these paradoxes. And this woman comes in and she is real life, you know. Where's the baby? Why didn't you give her and why didn't you take her and why didn't you go to the birthday of your grandmother, etc., etc. You know? And he is so full of all these ideas. Yeah. It was a conflict that I needed, although the film is not in a normal way constructed, like you know, these 5 stages you have with a conflict and etc. An introduction. It's completely different. But in the end, I needed this. That's why it took me so long. I needed this conflict in himself to make this final step. Yeah, and I hope that the viewer gets the idea how I visualize these steps inside him, because I wanted to make a sort of mental picture of what's happening inside him, and that's all these shots from above. You know, he's walking around, he's bicycling around, he's driving around, he's getting somewhere, but he doesn't know where to go to, and then in the end he comes to this uh, stretch of sand, you know, with the car. And
Right.
he removes the car, you know, he removes
He
the car.
throw he
Yeah, and
throw
then
things from the car, which
yeah,
also
exactly. He
looks
throws
like
everything away, and then he understands. Okay, I have to throw the car away, and the car is a sort of. Somebody told me it's a method, and I said, yeah, that's the right word. The car is a method to get somewhere, and he has to get rid of the method, you know, of the way to achieve something, which is very complicated. The Buddhists say there has to be no wanting or not wanting, yeah, or but then what to do, you know? You want and you don't want at the same time. And that's what he does. He sends away this method, this way of getting somewhere, and then he finally understands it. Delete everything.
it's fantastic. Another remarkable thing about this film is the intercuts, because there are lots of intercuts. The whole structure is so much based on intercuts between the scenes, and even within the scene, there are lots of things. I mean, it's a kind of modular between cutting to object and come back to the main character in between, make a montage sequence of something not related with that scene.
Yeah,
Okay, so it's always maintaining an imaginary, illusionary, reel them all through the film from the very beginning till the end, by keeping the center question, the I, how I can get rid of the whole idea of I and all that. Please
Yeah.
talk something about the editing. I'm very sure it must have been very
Ah,
difficult.
yeah. Well, the editing was a difficult journey too. It took me about 1 year and a half to
Oh,
edit the movie, and although it's almost like the script, um, yeah, I had an editor, very good editor. You probably know Johan van der Keuken, a Dutch documentary filmmaker from the last century, and he was his editor, Jan Dop. And Jan is a very old guy, and he's very good. And I could pay him for 8 months, so he was next to me for 8 months, and then I had to do it on my own. For instance, the audio, my talking to people on the like talking to Bart, the interview with Bart. Of course, it was not a real interview. I tried to explain to friends why I was so enthusiastic about this whole idea of this eye, etc., and how it worked. And I asked them at my home, one at a time, seven nights, and I explained to them in about 4 hours time why. Uh, I explained them a lot of stories, like a dog eating a bone, and things got into his gums, and he starts bleeding, and he thinks, "Oh, this is a nice bone," etc. And the blood is from him, not from the bone, but he thinks the bone makes him happy, but actually it's his own blood, you know, which is of course about happiness, and there's no I in between, etc., etc. There's a lot of so I explained this to the first evening to somebody, then the second evening to somebody, and then the third, and then so 7 times in a row. So I had I think about 60 hours of talking, myself talking, and then we had to edit this, and I tried to make a sort of perfect editing of these 7 stories about this dog. That's how I constructed it. And if I uh, like now I'm talking spontaneously, I'm not reading it, I'm not a voiceover reading what I wrote. I'm um, i make i'm i'm inventing the sentences in order to be clear, and that makes you a very good listener because you get along with this. This is something different than reading. you know so my voiceover is a sort of experiment. I really explain to someone what I'm curious about, what I'm enthusiastic about, what I'm thinking about. And sometimes they were like, I don't understand it at all. What about this dog? I don't understand it. And I said, okay, let's make it very clear. It's very simple. There's this dog, etc. And I became more and more eager to tell it. So this voice of myself, um, I think, in the end, it was a lot of work, and I couldn't do it myself, because I needed somebody else. Because I'm not an actor, so I think everything is wrong. This is not a good voice. This is not a good intonation. This is not good. This is not good. And he says, "Oh, this is all right. I listen to you, and I think this, and I think that." So that was the voice, and then the pictures. I had about 140 hours of material. For a 2-hour film is very, very much. But it was shot on video, so I didn't care about. And Ruud, the director of the actors, he was like, "Okay, do it again, do it again, do it again." And sometimes I did it 70 times, 70, 70. And in the end, they were like, "Okay, I do it again. I don't care anymore." And they were not acting; they were sort of fed up, and they just did it. And that then it became sort of reality. But that meant a lot of material, 140 hours. So it took us a month to just look at everything, and then start editing. And so that explains the 1 year and a half. And it was very difficult, for instance, to I talked about earlier about this shots from above, this point of view from God, you might say. from the car and on the bike. Um, it was very difficult to place them on the right spots, where you could understand that it was something inside his head, that he was not going on a trip or something. He was not really going somewhere, but it was inside him. That took us a very long time, and we tried a lot of things, and we tested it with the audiences, why is he traveling? And sometimes he said, well, he's going to Schiphol to get his girl, And of course, this was not the story at all.
And also, I mean, this is a film which is slightly different uh, from the cinematography perspective, also. Basically, from the point of view of making different kinds of images which are actually very appropriate for the thought process of the protagonist, because it's a different realm you are actually dealing with in this film, right? I mean, it's not that a drama happening between the characters. It is
No,
something which is happening within the character and inside the protagonist, right?
yeah,
How difficult it was to visualize that.
to shoot that.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah,
Visualize. I mean, visualize basically shoot. Yeah, yeah, of course.
yeah. Um, well, actually, it was quite easy because um, I what if I see a movie and I think it's not good acting, um, it's maybe because the actors weren't good. The set was the atmosphere on the set was wrong. Whatever. Some actors can't really good don't really good acting, and it's always on screen. They are on screen and they say their text, and you can't do anything about it. If they're not good acting, you can't edit it away. And in my movie, there's, as you said, there's not much dialogue. Uh, if I, for instance, if I had the girl in the picture, in the end with the two characters, Bart and his girlfriend, and they were in the shot themselves, the quarrel between them wouldn't have been as good as it is now with my 160 cuts in the audio. I couldn't have done 160 cuts in the video. You know, and then you're stuck to a sort of length, for a shot that at least it has to be 2 seconds. You have a reaction shot of somebody, and then you go back, and if the reaction shot is not really good, you immediately feel this is not reality. This is sort of acting, and I don't believe it, and all this sort of stuff wasn't happening because it was all outside the image. We never saw them, so I could go ahead with the audio. And it was the same with Bart. He doesn't have any text, almost no text. It was the same with people watching television. They didn't have any text. Sometimes they had some lines, but very rarely. Um, it was in the beginning. Of course, the quarrel in the beginning. Rick, the first time quarreling with the crew. Uh, that was also quite complicated. I think we record about an hour of quarreling. To get this 50 seconds of quarreling, um, which was funny, by the way. The people who built the set, they came in that day to have a look, of how things were going during the shooting, and they thought, oh, this is a wrong atmosphere. They are quarreling so much, maybe we better go away. But it was staged, it was not real. But they believed it so good that they went away. They thought, oh, there's something going wrong here. Uh, so this was a good proof that the quarreling was actually very, very well acted. But so for the acting part, it was quite easy. I had a lot of takes, and I only had to look at the guy, but I didn't have to listen to him talking in the screen itself. Because that makes a film good or bad. The acting on screen. And if it's not good, you can't do anything about it. Not with CGI, not with anything. If the actor is not good, and so that was really an advantage that all the audio was off screen. Yeah.
Okay.
There's two things, two small things. One, One was in, I mean, last night, me and Baiju were on call discussing about, what, how things should be happening today. And
Yeah,
we were talking about the film, and we ended up at the same conclusion that you mentioned today, that that the image, or the reflection being projected onto the image, is a sign that you are seeing the person, you're seeing the viewer, as well as the video that they're watching. So it shows you that they are seeing themselves in the image.
yeah,
So they are relating. So that's what cinema is, right? We go to the movies to live out our fantasies, and dream bigger than larger than life.
yeah,
So yeah, that's something that came up last night in our conversation as well. And then one small technical question, if I may.
yeah. Of course.
When towards the end, when there's a top down shot of the car, and he's throwing things away, uh, the camera is quite high. You even see the light poles, sorry, the street lights. um, could I ask you how that was achieved?
Yeah, of course. It's also in the making of. I will send you the link, and you see all the
I
testing.
will. Sure.
It's like if this is the car. I wanted to make. There were no drones at that time, not at all. So I
Right.
want to make this shot from above, and I wanted to move along with the car. And you can do it with a helicopter, of course, but you can't go that low. You can do it with. You might have strings attached, and you can move camera along. But it can't be 60 kilometers an hour, and the small cameras were not there at that time. So I thought, okay, I have to attach the camera to the car. So the camera is attached to the car. There is I built a thing that's coming out of the car. It going up 9 meters, and it goes in again, and there's the camera pointing at the car. And then of course you see this sticking out of the car. But he drives on motorways, and the lines of the street are always in the middle. So on this side, I only have asphalt. I only have the road, and I chose roads that were very clean. Not disturbed by a lot of things. So I could quite easily remove the part sticking out of the car by a different piece of the road. And then if you go like this so high, the street poles are like this. They are about 7 meters high. So the camera goes above the street poles. You know, this was very well constructed by a friend of mine, and it worked. I I happened to crash the cameras. We had a test site, and then we went to another location, and I happened to crash the camera to a street pole. The camera was not a real camera hanging there. It was just a lens. The camera was in the back of the car
Mhm.
because the camera would be too hard, too heavy. 9 meters above. It was just a lens, and I happened to destroy the lens. It was very expensive lens, 40,000 euros, and it came from England, and it was the same day, and it's today. It's exactly 25 years ago. I read on the news that Lady Diana died. So exactly 25 years ago, I made my first shooting day. It's funny
Oh,
that we have now this conversation. It's really 25 years ago, and
yeah.
then I needed another lens from England, but of course they needed all the cameras to cover her funeral. So we had to wait for 2 weeks to get a new camera. It was really a disastrous start of the movie. It was the second shot I made, and I myself was driving the car, and I myself crashed the camera lens. But that's how it's done. And as I said, I would love to show it to you, of course, right now, but I can't. But I'll send you the making of, and that's all there. You see the testing, you see the thing pointing out of the camera of the car. Yeah, it will be clear.
Yeah, that was one of my guesses. My second guess was a miniature. Then I thought the compositing is way too good for this to be a
Yeah,
miniature.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So it
exactly.
has to be a
Yeah,
practical.
it has to be
So,
real. Yeah, that's
yeah,
that's
yeah,
because when he throws out, you're actually right.
yeah,
I can understand that you know a lot about film and movies. That if he throws out things, of course, in the studio it would stay there on the ground.
yeah, yeah.
And even with with the rain, he has this. In the end, he gets really crazy, because he definitely wants to do something, and he's in this rain yelling. And this was also funny because how can you create this rain? Um, and I found a fire. How do you call it? Um, I don't know the word. When there is a fire in a house, they come with these cars and they
Fire brigade.
water. You know, the fire brigade car. I don't know. And and I there was one in Holland that could drive and in the meantime spread the water. It's not have to stand still. It could drive. And then I thought, okay, if you throw all the water between the car and the camera, you go with this with water. It looks like it's raining. But it turned out that it didn't look like rain at all. You didn't see it, you didn't see the water drops. The only way it worked was when they hit inside the car, the roof was open. So they sprayed with two of these big, you know, water. They sprayed it in the car where I was sitting in the back of the car to see if everything was going all right. So I was completely soaked, and the water was like this in the car, so high. But yeah, well, there's all these stories, about making of. It's also in the making of, I think. But this was quite an adventure to have all this water coming in.
Thank you so much. I think we might be uh, just it might already be an hour, so we don't want to take too much of your time. Yeah.
No,
It
it's all
was,
right. I really enjoyed the talking, and I really enjoyed the questions, and I really, I'm very glad that you saw the movie, that you are so interested in it. And
we also hope that we didn't trouble you so much. I mean, by uh, you know starting with lots of this technical glitches and all that kind of thing. Thank you so much, yeah,
my pleasure.
giving us this interview and give us some sort of enlightenment on the whole idea about the eye
Yeah,
and how it been translated into cinema,
yeah.
especially see that things. And where did you pick the story? See that thing. That
Um, I think it was from this Walter Keers. Yeah, it was not from Nishikadatta or Ramana Maharshi, or I read all these guys, of course, and I made all these dog ears, but I think it was Walter Keers who wrote it somewhere. Yeah, see that thinks it's a tree.
it's a wonderful story.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
Yeah,
And it's a
it is.
wonderful film, and
wonderful film.
Thank
yeah,
you very much, guys. Thank you
yeah,
very
yeah,
much.
yeah. And uh,
Because
it's been 20. It's been more than 20 years, but it doesn't feel a day older than
Ah, great.
it was. I think it will continue to live on many
Yeah, I
more
hope so.
years.
Well, it
Yeah,
does actually. I mean, we are 25 years ahead, and you're still talking about it. So
yeah,
it's timeless. It's proven to be timeless. Yeah, and I have a DVD, and I still sell it.
mm,
Sometimes once a week, once a month, but it's
mhm,
still going on for 25 years.
mm,
Still, people want to have the DVD or
mm,
see the movie somewhere.
yeah.
So I hope your students will like it, and yeah. And if
Yeah,
you
they're
want to
watching.
if you want to extend, the viewing period, now it's a week, or 8 days,
Yeah,
feel free, we can talk about it, no problem.
sure.
The more people see the film, the better. That's why it's made, not
Sure.
to make money, but to show it.
That was director Gert de Graaff in conversation with Baiju Kurup from NID, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. Fast forward to a few days later, that's when we had this next part of the discussion at the Arthaus Project. I hope you guys enjoy this too. Yeah, let's see. Krithik, do you want to go first? What did you think of the film?
Yeah. Again, I was quite apprehensive because it was an experimental film and whatnot. But again, thanks to Art House, it was quite a fun watch. Actually, I kind of enjoyed watching it because it was kind of playful in its uh, in its execution. I mean, even the commentary, that the large part of the documentary had some kind of commentary, and that was playful, and it also had these playful visual ideas placed to it. It found a way to what do you say? find a visual metaphor for its ideas and whatnot, and it was quite fun and engaging to watch. And yeah, that's all
Were
I have.
you apprehensive because it is experimental, or because?
Yeah, because of the experimental film genre. Because I've not had much success with it myself, as in interest in it myself from what little I've seen from it. But I think previously you guys also put out Symbio Psychotoxiclasm, and that was also
Yeah,
a really good watch. So yeah, I mean, I think I'm turning around a little bit, but yeah, that's it.
well, a good film is a good film, right? Regardless of genre. At least
Oh,
that's what I
definitely,
think.
definitely. Yeah.
Mohammed.
Uh, so after a long time, Arthaus film, I was, this movie was given. So it was a good watch. I shouldn't be saying that it was excellent, but yeah, intriguing, experimental. Since I read the title experimental, so I didn't have any clue that what this movie will be talking about. So just I gave a try. At the beginning, it was very confusing because the screen is switching off. Then I am being transported to every new atmosphere, switching, and it was little disturbing for me at the first 30 minutes. Later on, where that part came of this man sitting and writing screenplay, writer who is searching books, going through that part, I was little bit hooked. I was trying to understand what is going on in this man's head. So later on, since I have read this little bit of Vedanta, and in that there is a concept called uh, the one who knows everything. We are not the mind, we are not the body. Then what we are? What we are? Consciousness. Then I felt that he was trying to explore who is that writes, who is that sees, who is that behind everything. Even in a deep sleep, our mind shuts down, but there is somebody who is witnessing every this nature. So that questioning, no, who am I, and those things, I was being connected. I was getting the momentum. Okay, what this guy is trying to say, that he's trying to explore the basic nature of our human, who we are, who is that person that eats, who is that person that knows everything and trying to be in this world. So, and there were a lot of analogies and the metaphors which he was saying, and I was being convinced, because I have read this one, so I was understanding what this guy is trying to say. Even his, I think that lady who was arguing with him that you are a mad person, but I felt this man is really behind something, some quest, something to know the basic of everything existence. It is not that the world exists out, it is the world exists in us. It is everything in our mind, and that makes sense. Sometimes if you think clearly, every person, even the Krithik, is in my mind. He may be out now, but somehow we can argue that he is in our mind. And somewhere Christopher Nolan also has explored this concept of consciousness. Everything is in our mind. So it was very interesting. But as the end came, I couldn't, I tried watching it, but couldn't grasp the complete picture. So I hope after this discussion I may get some clarity.
Mohammed, that's a masterful interpretation of the film. I'm very impressed, and I'm so glad you brought up this philosophy of who am I and what am I, because believe it or not, 2 days ago we had a meeting with the director where we did an interview, and he was talking about the same thing. He was talking about how he was influenced by uh, Indian philosophy, specifically. I forget the name, but it's there in the interview, that this concept interested him so much that um, he designed this film around it. Can I ask you to point out a few of the metaphors that you noticed while watching the film?
One is that like a projector, screen projector. When on the screen you see a people, you see there is a rain, you see people are crying on the screen, but it is not affecting the screen as it is. It will never, it is not going to affect the screen. So here ultimately we may experience pain, we may experience joy, we may experience misery, but ultimately it is not going to affect our real nature, that is our consciousness. uh, so that is one metaphor. He's trying to catch. uh, and uh, and there is like mm, I'm not getting in my means I'm not getting that metaphor. I'll try to think. Yeah.
So in connection with Mohammed was talking about identity, there is a segment in the film where a group of people go on the street interviewing people, asking them, "What are you?" They don't ask who you are; they ask what you are. So, what did you guys think of that? Was that confusing, or did you have an answer to that question?
I guess he had a kind of purpose in. I've not thought this through, but I guess he kind of had a purpose in of itself in asking the question. I mean, he probably knew the answer he was going to get, and for me, I'm not very much familiar with philosophy. I've read a bit here and there, but I'll perhaps bring it up later. What I thought, what I could get from the film. But yeah, I guess Mohammed can take it up now.
So that in the beginning, no, that questioning part, it was really interesting. That what you are and the people's response, no, that actually shows that how we identify ourselves. We identify ourselves with the work we do. We identify ourselves with the emotions we have, the thoughts we are. We are nothing but the collection of experiences, memories. That is what they're trying to tell. And the interviewer or the director, what he's trying to say is, we don't know who we really are. It's not that we can't be memory, Baba. See, if we had been memory, and in the movie, he goes on, talking to himself about this memory things, what are thoughts, and how we can't be the thought. So that part, asking people, even if I happen to have a chance, I'll be just talking. Okay, who are you? They may identify. Okay, I am the son of this and this person. I'm an artist. You are an artist, that but what you are, that question can't be answered by anyone. It's very difficult. And if we are answering that question, then we have attained nirvana or Buddha's enlightenment. If we are able to answer that question, then we are really enlightened.
But at the same time, it's also a very simple question, right?
Very simple question.
Yeah,
That is what he is the director, I felt. See how complex we make ourselves. We are not able to answer the simplest of the simplest simple question. We pride ourselves of knowing theories. We pride ourselves of knowing many things. We pride ourselves that we know very much about ourselves, but in truth we know very less about ourselves. uh, we know that, what is my favorite food. I can tell that one. I know, okay, which film excites me, which stories or which books excite me. Those are all secondary details of what I am. It only gives what are my likings. It gives secondary details of my personality. But who am or what I am I this body of flesh? Am I this brain? That question is very simple. It looks very simple, but highly impossible for many individuals. Not many. I think 99.9% of people, including me, yeah, we are unable to answer that question. What we really are.
Yeah, because there's many answers to it, right? Someone answers with profession, someone answers with man, woman, age. So there's multiple answers to it. But in the end, the meaning of the question is you're trying to find out what makes you you. There's 7 billion people in the world. What makes you you? So yeah, it's a challenging conversation. It's like Mohammed said, it's not an easy one to answer. Oh, and there's also part of there's one segment where they stop a woman and they tell her that, wait, don't say that. You say that after question number 2. So it makes you think, what is real, what is not real. And that is a theme throughout the film, right? What is and is not real. That's why they show so many illusions.
I was little confused that whatever he's thinking, he's typing, right? That is
Yeah,
the thing he's doing.
yeah.
Okay, if even if he picks a spoon, then he writes in the that comes on the screen that okay, Bart is picking the spoon. Bart is feeding the kid. I didn't understand why he's doing that.
He's writing a screenplay called The Sea That Thinks. And in the screenplay, he is one of the characters in the story.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, whatever he does ends up being a part of the film.
Oh,
It's almost like a self-referential joke because the filmmaker is making this film about a filmmaker who's stuck. So
okay. And the second point I wanted to talk here is why did the director choose the see that things?
hmm,
So see, I feel that here is the person. See is
hmm,
the person.
hmm,
Uh, I got this connection because one in the one text in
hmm,
Vedanta text of Viveka Chudamani, the text name is in that it tells one metaphor that we are drops of the oceans. We are the drops of the ocean. That means there is no difference between the ocean and the drop. It is also made up of H2O element, and the ocean is also made up of whole ocean. It might be in large in shape, but the basic element is the compound. Compound is H2O. Even if it is a single drop, or it may be the whole ocean. Uh, I hope I am trying. I am making some sense.
right, right. But there's also a reference in the middle of the film where they say there was a sea who was happy. I can't recollect the poem very
Yeah,
clearly,
yeah, 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 yeah.
but one day the sea began to imagine what would life be like if it was a tree, and then while doing that, it became unhappy. So I guess that the sea is like a character, right? Who's trying to be someone who is not who it is not, and that is causing it great unhappiness.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
only way the sea can be happy again is to accept who it really is, and that also ties in with the "what are you" question.
Yeah, I think the director has hit the point that if we try to identify with this body, that is one character, then we are bound to suffer. Whereas if you identify yourself with the the larger self, the ultimate, they say Brahman something, then you are not going to suffer, or in other words, you are going to be in eternal happiness. But I have read this one, but I don't know. I am unable to grasp the gravity of this statement. That there is one dialogue you might have saying that aham brahmasmi tatvam asi. You might have heard this statement. These are mahavakyas in Upanishads and Vedantas.
What does it
That
mean?
aham brahmas means I am the ultimate, the Brahman, cosmic body, and we are the fragments of that cosmic body.
Hmm.
That means if the that cosmic is like a ocean, then I am just a drop in that. So if I try to identify with the cosmic self, then I am going to be happy eternally. If I identify with this Mohammed with limited body and limited intelligence, then I am going to suffer. Like in the movie, it says the sea was happy, but when it identified itself with a tree, it started to become unhappy because it's not see's nature is not a tree, so it is going to be happy. Some many a times when we try to be other people, no, we suffer actually. When we are our original self, we actually enjoy life a lot. So I think
Hmm.
that makes a sense in what director is trying to say.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense actually.
But my question was, why the sea wants to become a tree?
But isn't that the story of everyone basically? That I'm going to take a very broad example. Let's say there's a musician you like, rock star or pop star, whoever it may be. You can see kids try to emulate what this person is like, dress like them, talk like them, act like them. or maybe in your professional life you may see someone more successful than you. And I'll give a very funny example. In Bombay, there's an area called Versova. You go there, right? That entire neighborhood is filled with actors, writers, directors who are waiting to get a chance in the film industry. And they all have a certain, appearance to them, external appearance to them. They dress a certain way, they act a certain way. So it's become a subculture of its own over there. I don't know where they're getting all these ideas from. Maybe, they've seen some filmmaker they like or some actor they like, and they're trying to imitate what they've seen to be successful. Yeah, I guess everyone's trying to be a better version of themselves, at least, if not be someone else.
So in a way, the director is telling not to, imitate others.
Perhaps.
Mm.
Yeah.
If that metaphor that sea became the tree and it was unhappy, that suits. Yeah, that can be
Towards
one
the end
understanding.
of the film, he basically destroys everything, right? Throws away everything he has, like
Yeah,
whatever he
that
has,
was
he throws
little.
away.
Yeah.
All his belongings, all his
Mm.
careful notes and papers and all those things, because
Mm.
those things had become his identity, and he realized that that is not his identity.
Mm.
He has to grow beyond that.
What you mentioned about real and not real was the thing that most struck out to me most in this film. I mean, um, so I when he goes and asks the people, what are you? The thing is, whatever descriptions we have of ourselves, like we cannot actually prove that they are real. I mean, they're just some kind of descriptions or we come up for ourselves. I mean, I'm going around in circles, but yeah, whether it's like what we perceive or what we think about ourselves or our memory, and somewhere also in the documentary it comes up that the only thing that we can actually say exists is our thoughts, and somehow that I remember this quote by this when that quote came up in the documentary. I remember this other quote by this other philosopher. I think it was, "I think, therefore I am," and I don't know whether that comes under ontology or epistemology, right? So it's basically like we cannot anything beyond our actual thoughts we cannot prove exists because it's all just being fed into by our sense organs, whether it is sight or sound or smell. And so I thought this kind of real and not real boundary was very well done in the documentary, because what he in the second part of the document, when we see the guy writing about writing the script for the sea that thinks, what he writes, that is like what he thinks becomes real as in action. And that was something that there was some kind of connection that formed in my mind over there.
Oh, that was wonderful. Actually, I didn't, catch this one. Very, very, very much true. Whatever is or whatever he's doing, it is becoming a thought, and whatever is he thinking, it is becoming a reality. That was a nice way of pointing out.
Yeah, good point.
I wanted to bring another point. So now again, adding to the critics' point of what is real and unreal, I always had this thought. I haven't found the answer for it. One question has pushed my mind every time is that Inception movie. If whatever we are experiencing, why shouldn't that be a dream? And it's very difficult when you are in the dream. It's very, very difficult to know that you are dreaming. So why shouldn't this my reality that I am talking to you guys, I am talking to Vivek, I am talking to Krithik, why shouldn't this be a dream where waking up is very difficult, uh, and that waking up can be called as enlightenment, or even death can be, in some way connected to waking up. Okay, then you wake up out of this dream. So I had this question ever since I watched the Inception movie. There is no way of understanding what we are experiencing now. Is it 100% real? I think there is, objectively, we can never say that whatever we are now present, this, we cannot prove this is a reality. Do you guys also agree with this, or you have other understanding on this?
Yeah, there's this concept called lucid dreaming. If you, in which you dream, but you're also responsible for your action in your dream. It's not just a passive viewing experience. Meaning that in your dream you can, go to school, come back from school, and play with your friends, or go to office, whatever. You can do all these things in your dream as if you were awake. But only difference is when you wake up, you realize that it was all just a dream. That, but during your dream state, like you said, everything feels 100% real. And it's only after waking where you realize that, oh, it really wasn't that real at all. It just felt real. So yeah, what do you say? I mean, to be honest, no one has the answer what happens after death, right? So we don't know. There have been philosophies on it, there's been religions on it, there's been studies on it, but no clear answer. But I'm curious to hear more about this whole enlightenment concept that you were talking about.
Krithik, have you ever any points on this?
I mean, I have nothing to add other than, yeah, I do agree with that. I mean, we don't, we don't, we, everything is technically, we don't really have a clear definition between dreams and reality. And we can't even, actually definitely say that yesterday actually happened or yesterday existed, because what happens, what happened before you wake up is a complete unknown. I mean, these are all like, yeah, it is, it's interesting to think about the limitations of our own, our own, perception of reality, or our own memory and whatnot.
And sometimes this thought also disturbs me, because uh, it's really uncontrolled, means it's out of our hand. Though if what Vivek says is, if it is lucid dreaming, that where you can have a controlled dreaming, that you can control your, not 100% but 50% of the action you can control, and other 50% goes to the chance, like luck. Whatever happens, destiny. That is what we label it. So this was one concept when I was watching this movie. The same thing was happening, like, okay, this man is, okay, means having such a, vast amount of thoughts in his mind, and he's, because I also went through this, struggling with all this number of questions, and it is really frustrating. And it's, I can't put it in words that how frustrating. And in the movie it is shown very nicely, where he's getting frustrated, and one by one he starts throwing it out. And whenever he's riding the cycle, he's showing that frustration. Yeah, okay, he doesn't want to identify with anything. And at the end he's trying to clear the slate, whatever he has identified himself, like a writer, a person with a name, a person with a character, a person who has a, kid. uh, so that frustration, that maddening, I don't know how many of this happens only for the writers, or intellectuals, because I haven't seen people, uh, I just wanted to ask, to put at the end, uh, why do people have this, questions, like only writers do have, or just intellectuals who are trying to understand self, what they are, only they undergo this struggle? Because when they are asking the questions to the random audience, they don't seem to take it very seriously. Okay, what I am, okay, I don't know what I am, okay, I'll go and live my life. But whereas this writer, he sits, thinks, tries to ponder, tries to brainstorm, tries to, and at the end he is frustrated. And so I was curious that why do this, especially writers, intellectual thinkers, or what should I say, creative thinkers, uh, there are many names to it, but why do they have this thought, writer's block, or something like creative block, something is stopping them, or their mind is itself, acting like a, what is a defense for its, against its own mind. So that was my question, like why do these thoughts come up?
In college, I had a professor who said something that the scariest thing for a creative person is a blank page, because when you have a blank page, everything in the world is possible. Every option is available to you. It's only through writing, editing, revising over and over and over do you decide what this piece of work will actually be. It could be a painting or it could be a screenplay. That entire process is of refinement of what that final goal should look like. That's why you write and you rewrite and then you rewrite. So I guess that's part of the reason why he was struggling. That just like identity, he was also struggling with what the film needs to be.
But one thing which Mohammed did ask is, do only creatives or do intellectuals get these kind of crises? I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I've never thought about it. Thought about it though. Like, I mean, there are sure other kinds of people get do undergo through kind of uh, uh, existential crisis where they kind of question their life and their values and whatnot. But what Mohammed was talking about, I don't know if it's specific only to the creative person. So it's a good thing to that he brought up. Just to, one more thing that really interested me in the film was where we see things from the perspective of the television set, and
Yeah,
I was kind of that was a I want to know. I don't remember whether it was explicitly mentioned or whether I have it was mentioned documentary. But is it fine if I call it a documentary
it
or
is not,
experimental film?
because the director himself said that you know this film won best documentary award at IDFA, which is the biggest festival for documentaries in the world. And he thought it was funny because he didn't classify it as a documentary. He thinks of it as a fiction film,
Hmm.
experimental fiction film. So yeah, it's not a
Experimental
documentary.
docu-fiction.
No docu. He's
Okay,
Everything
so
is staged and fake. Yeah.
that's a fun conversation we can have later. Documentaries, but yeah, that thing about the television was very interesting because he formed some kind of correlation that because basically what we see and hear it is only what we see and experience, I mean not see what we experience in our minds, right? So we don't actually know whether the laptop screen is emitting light, but we know that's what our brain is telling us. So it's kind of like our brain is forming an image, our brain is forming the environment. And it's very interesting that he forms that correlation between the television screen and the theater, which is basically it projects an image for us. It projects an image which is not an exact version of reality in itself.
Actually, one I during listening to this talk regarding this one, the television, I remembered that television symbolizes here as a thought. Like for example, we have thoughts of uh, like different channels. We have different thoughts in a day. like emotions, happiness, sadness. So television represents ourself, and that channel represents the thoughts, various thoughts, and it is said that we have 60,000 of thoughts per day, and that switching of the channels immediately, speed by speed, that was symbolizing that okay, how our thoughts are. If television can be said a mind, then the thoughts are the channels, different channels, and whatever is going in one channel, that if you're a lady or a forecast, weather forecast, so these are all channels. So I thought, okay, this person is telling about our mind and the thoughts.
There's also this notion that we live vicariously through images, through film specifically. We try to live out fantasies through film. We try to. There was a scientific study done recently, or at least the results were announced recently, that people tend to watch film to help navigate their own life. Like it helps them navigate their own life because films can often have situations that you have not faced yet, but there is a chance you may face. It seems like a lot of people watch movies for that reason.
Yeah, somehow we live those experience through movies.
Yeah, I guess earlier in the day we probably did it through stories, through novels and books. Now we do it through film. Perhaps that has a correlation to what Krithik was saying.
I don't think I have anything else to add. Yeah, but I really appreciate this film because it had a bunch of interesting ideas, and it also found it not only had an interesting way of telling that, you know. In quotation marks narratively, but it also found very nice visual ideas also to put it in a film, and it was I especially like it for that because it's a very good way of thinking about these kind of ideas in film.
Yeah,
Yeah,
adding to Kritik, there was a few geometrical illusions, because two of them was showed like a cube. It was showed on the cube, and there was one more triangle type of shape. We don't means we will not be able to find the beginning or the end of that triangle. So those shape, they somehow I thought this director is trying to tell that whatever we are seeing this outside, no, it's just an illusion. And second point maybe that it depends on our perspective, uh, from what angle you are seeing, or what perspective of what background you are coming. So illusion, the concept of illusion, I think he was trying to elicit through these geometrical shapes and mathematical shapes what he kept. And at the end he was at the end, very interestingly, he makes them move. Once they are moving, then we start, oh, this is just a illusion. There was no cube, and there was not no two cubes, or there is no triangle at all. And that moving, coming from coming out of the frame, or if I say looking at that shape in different angles, the illusion breaks. So somehow this all reality what you are experiencing, there is some way of coming out of this illusion, and that is like stepping back, taking a step back, and that taking a step back, it's very difficult.
what I appreciate about this film is that it's so uncompromising in its vision, and it's so fluid in its expression about ideas, about um, visual motifs, like Mohammed said, and like Krithik said, it manages to be engaging all during this time. It's actually fun to watch this film. It's not a heady film as such. So yeah, overall, I think I enjoyed this film more than I thought I would. So it was a good watch.
Last point I just wanted to bring is that lady
Yes,
at
yes.
the end. At the end, she says, she scolds that man that you are nothing but the borrowed wisdom. You are just borrowing wisdom, borrowing books. You are nobody. You don't have your originality. You are everything borrowed. So that hit me a lot. As a person, yeah, he's reading a lot of books. He's doing a lot of things. But at the end, that lady says, no, you're nothing but the borrowed item. You have just borrowed the wisdom. You don't have any wisdom of your own. You have just borrowed it. And at the end, somewhere that frustration comes out, and he tries to throw everything whatever he has borrowed, and which makes him identified with that person. So that was at the end a little bit intriguing. That observation I wanted to bring in. That's all from my end.
That is true. I mean, most of the points we talk about are not really our own. It's something we've read, something we've seen. Yeah, most of it is borrowed, like Mohammed said.
Then where comes our part? So for what should we get credit for? Just putting different pieces together? Should I get a prize for that? Or suppose I am writing if I make a film, definitely I have borrowed the ideas. I have some read somewhere or might have listened to some philosopher or something. But at the end, I have put together and I have made a film. Should I be given the credit? And this question goes back that who is the owner of the film, or that movie we explored, no, the director, that black person, uh, who is the owner of the
Symbiosis.
film? Symbios. Yeah, sorry, I'm unable to pronounce that. So ultimately, we come back to that film.
I mean, I mean, if we can continue on this path, I mean, personally, I think personally it's very difficult to have a truly original thought, and that's why we remember so many people. I mean, so few people have an original, have a truly original and a clear idea, and at the end of the day, we do stand on the shoulders of giants. We build on what is given to us. It's practically impossible to start from scratch. Whether you're a scientist or an artist, you are existing in this continuum, and you're building off of someone else's work, and in the future, hopefully someone will be building off of your work too.
Should we wrap it up, or guys want to discuss anything?
No, I am done.
Okay, Krithik.
Yeah, I'm done.
So if you've been listening so far, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.